This is a notebook. Where is the passport? Enjoy your stay-at-home vacation. Please leave. This house is mine. The fire that devoured the blue gold-embossed paper blazed brightly in the darkness of the backyard. The smell was acrid. The mix of burning paper and melting ink was not ordinary trash, but 4 passports, vital documents that were the lifeline for a group of people currently standing arrogantly in the international departure terminal. Behind the dancing flames, Eleanor stood tall. Her beautiful face, illuminated by the orange glow, bore a smile that was hard to interpret. It wasn't a smile of happiness, but one of absolute satisfaction at seeing the meticulously planned scheme hatched behind her back go up in flames. There were no tears, only fire. Hello, fasten your seatbelts. Because today's story is the very definition of the most satisfying VIP lane instant karma. We will delve into the story of a wife who was considered a foolish freeloader by her husband's family, but who repaid their betrayal in the most elegant way. Without shouting, without cheap drama, but utterly devastating. I was personally trembling with emotion as I reconstructed the chronology of this event. The story begins 2 days before the fire incident. The atmosphere in Eleanor's house felt strange. There was a tension masked by an excessive false friendliness. Mark, her husband, who was usually indifferent and often complained about being tired from work, suddenly became very diligent. He even hummed a little tune as he locked his study door, a room that had always been off-limits to Eleanor. A wife's intuition is truly that frightening. Eleanor felt something was wrong, not because of what she saw, but because of what was being hidden from her. That afternoon, Mark was careless. The small silver key that always hung from his belt loop was left on the dining table as he rushed to take a shower. Eleanor, who was clearing the dirty dishes, saw the object glinting, as if it were calling to her. Without a sound, Eleanor took the key. Her steps were light yet firm as she headed towards Mark's study. Her heart pounded. Not from fear of being caught, but from fear of facing a truth that might shatter her heart. Click! The door opened. The room was tidy. Too tidy. Eleanor went straight to the main desk drawer, which was always kept securely locked. She turned the key. The drawer opened, and there, on top of a stack of bills, lay a thick manila envelope with the logo of a famous travel agency. With trembling hands, Eleanor took out its contents. It was a printout of tickets and a luxurious travel itinerary. Her eyes widened as she read the details printed there. Destination: Rome, Florence, Amalfi, Coast, Italy. Duration: 10 days. Passengers: Mark Peterson, adult. Brenda Peterson, adult. Jessica Peterson, adult. 3 names. Only 3 names. Eleanor's name was not there. Honestly, when I reached this part, my own chest felt tight. Imagine you are the legal wife living under the same roof, serving them every day. But when there's a chance for a luxury vacation abroad, your name is just erased as if you don't exist. This isn't just being cheap. It's an insult to a wife's dignity. Eleanor slowly crumpled the paper. Her eyes shifted to the departure date column. Her heart sank. The date was tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Instantly, the pieces of Mark's lies from the past week came together in her head. Mark had said he had a week-long business conference in Omaha. Her mother-in-law Brenda and her sister-in-law Jess said they wanted to stay over at Eleanor's tonight because their house was having renovations for a leaky roof. It turned out to be all a rotten scenario. They were gathering here not because of a leaky roof, but to go to the airport together in the wee hours of the morning, leaving Eleanor alone in the house like a live-in housekeeper. From the living room, the sound of stifled laughter could be heard. Eleanor sharpened her ears. It was the voices of Brenda and Jess who had just arrived, and were being greeted by Mark, who had just finished his shower. Finally, Mom, tomorrow we'll be free. Jess's voice was loud, piercing through the study wall where the door was slightly ajar. I can't wait to take pictures on the cliffs of Positano. It's a good thing that Cinderella wasn't invited. It would be so embarrassing if she came along. All her clothes look like they're from a discount store. Mark's voice was heard chiming in a slight whisper but still clearly audible. Shh. Keep it down, she'll hear you. The point is, we leave quietly at dawn tomorrow. Lock her bedroom door from the outside. If we have to, so there's no drama of her asking to come. Eleanor froze. The tears that had welled up in her eyes suddenly receded, replaced by a cold chill that spread from her toes to the crown of her head. The sadness vanished in an instant, scorched away by a rage so calm yet terrifying. I get chills imagining how vile their words were. Jess, whose university tuition was paid for with Mark's salary money that should have been for Eleanor's grocery budget, dared to speak like that. And Mark. What kind of husband would suggest locking his own wife in from the outside? This has reached the level of a permanent, non-negotiable red flag. Inside the quiet study, Eleanor took a deep breath. She wouldn't confront them now. That would be too easy. It wouldn't be worth the pain they had inflicted. Confronting them would only make them defensive and make Eleanor look like a hysterical madwoman. Eleanor was a classy woman, and classy women don't play with screams. They play with strategy. She smoothed out the ticket paper, put it back in the envelope, and placed it back in its original position inside the drawer. Exactly as it was before. She locked the drawer, then left the study and placed the silver key back on the dining table. Eleanor walked to the mirror in the hallway, staring at her pale reflection. Slowly, the corner of her lips lifted into a cold, lopsided smile. "A vacation to Italy," Eleanor whispered to her reflection. Her voice was soft but sharp like a paper cut. "Go ahead and pack neatly, but make sure you can fly without wings." That night, the dinner table felt like an amateur theater stage. Brenda, who usually spoke sparingly to Eleanor, suddenly praised her homemade lasagna. "Delicious, Eleanor. So flavorful," she said curtly while exchanging a meaningful glance with Jess. Mark ate quickly, his eyes fixed on the wall clock, as if counting down to a rocket launch. They acted as if it were a normal evening. In reality, their large suitcases had been hidden in the car's trunk since that afternoon, so Eleanor wouldn't suspect anything. Eleanor served them with a smile that was just as fake. She poured water into Brenda's glass with a very steady hand, while in her head she was formulating a war strategy. After dinner, they all made excuses to go to bed early. "We have to help the construction workers early tomorrow morning, so we need to be well rested." Mark's excuse sounded ridiculous to Eleanor's ears. What construction workers start at 6 a.m.? But Eleanor just nodded obediently. The house lights were turned off earlier than usual. By 10 p.m., the house was silent. Only the soft snores from the guest room where Brenda and Jess were sleeping and Mark's regular breathing in the master bedroom could be heard. Eleanor lay beside her husband, her eyes wide open, staring at the dark ceiling. She waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. At exactly 2 a.m., Eleanor got up. Her body slid off the mattress with the stealth of a cat. She didn't wear slippers, so her steps would be silent. Her main destination, the living room. The light from the street lamps filtering through the gaps in the curtains provided a dim illumination. Eleanor held her breath as she passed the guest room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, Brenda's knockoff designer handbag was lying carelessly on a chair, and next to it was Mark's leather backpack. The backpack's zipper wasn't even fully closed, revealing the edge of a clear plastic folder inside. Now I have to comment here. This is what you call arrogance leading to disaster, guys. Logically, if you're about to commit a crime, in this case running off abroad and leaving your legal wife behind, shouldn't you hug your vital documents while you sleep, or at least put them under your pillow? Here they were, left carelessly in the living room, as if they were 100% certain that Eleanor was a fool who wouldn't wake up. Seriously, they underestimated the wrong opponent. Eleanor crouched in front of the chair. Her heart hammered. The sound was like a drumbeat in her own ears. Her cold hand reached for Mark's bag. Slowly, she pulled the plastic folder out. The contents were complete. 3 blue passports with the gleaming golden eagle emblem printed airline tickets, and a few euro banknotes. Eleanor wasted no time. She reached into her pajama pocket and pulled out 4 small notebooks she had bought at the stationery store that afternoon while grocery shopping. Their size was identical to a passport. Their covers were also dark blue. Although the texture was slightly different if you felt it carefully, Eleanor knew that people in a panic and a hurry at the airport wouldn't have time to feel the texture of a cover. They would only see the blue color and the golden emblem sticker that Eleanor had neatly applied. With swift yet careful movements, Eleanor swapped the documents. The real passports went into her pajama pocket. The fake passport notebooks went into the plastic folder. The sound of rustling paper seemed a bit too loud in the dead of night. Eleanor froze. Her eyes darted nervously towards the hallway. From the master bedroom, the sound of a creaking mattress was heard. Mark's voice, mumbling in his sleep, could be heard. "What time is it?" Followed by the sound of heavy footsteps dragging across the floor. "I'm dead," Eleanor thought. Mark's awake. There was no time to run back to the bedroom. The master bedroom was too far, and she would surely run into Mark in the hallway. Eleanor looked around in a panic. She was trapped in the living room. The bathroom light turned on. Mark was walking towards the bathroom, which was located directly opposite the living room. Eleanor sank down, hiding her body behind the large L-shaped sofa. She hugged the 4 real passports tightly to her chest, holding her breath until her lungs ached. Mark's footsteps drew closer. Her husband's shadow stretched across the floor, getting closer and closer to the sofa, where Eleanor was hiding. The sound of the bathroom door opening was heard, then it closed again. The sound of flushing water followed. Eleanor let out the smallest possible sigh of relief. She had about 2 minutes before Mark came out. With what little courage she had left, Eleanor crawled backward towards the kitchen. She knew the safest hiding place. In the corner of the kitchen, under the pantry cabinet, there was a floor tile whose grout had come loose and could be lifted. It was Eleanor's secret spot for her emergency money, which Mark didn't know about. Eleanor lifted the tile with her fingernails. She placed the 4 real passports, including her own, which she had taken from Mark's drawer yesterday, into the cool space below the floorboards. She replaced the tile, then slid the large trash can over it to cover the seam. Perfect. Just as Eleanor stood up and was about to grab a glass of water as an alibi, she felt a cold tap on her shoulder. "What are you doing in the dark kitchen at this hour?" Mark's voice was heavy and suspicious right behind her ear. Eleanor stood frozen, her blood seemingly ceasing to flow. Did Mark see her hide the passports? Eleanor turned her body slowly. Her heart felt like it would leap out of her chest, but her face remained flat as if nothing had happened. In her hand, she held an empty glass she had just taken from the dish rack. "Thirsty, honey?" Eleanor answered briefly. Her voice was hoarse, typical of someone who had just woken up. She walked casually past Mark to the water dispenser, filled the glass with cold water, and drank it in one gulp. "My throat is really dry." "What are you doing up?" Mark rubbed his eyes, looking relieved to see his wife just drinking water, not holding passports. "Oh, I had to pee." "Okay, hurry back to bed. It's still early." Eleanor nodded obediently. She walked back to the bedroom with Mark following behind. Under the covers, Eleanor turned her back to her husband, pretending to fall asleep immediately. In reality, her eyes were wide open, staring into the darkness, counting every second. She could not fall asleep. Not even for a second. 2 hours later, at exactly 4 a.m., the alarm on Mark's phone vibrated softly under his pillow. Mark woke up instantly with an alertness that was a rare sight, considering he usually needed to be shouted at 3 times before he would get up for work. This time, the motivation of a vacation to Italy made him more diligent than a soldier. Mark tiptoed out of the room. Faintly, Eleanor heard whispering in the living room. "Shh, Mom. Lift the suitcase. Don't drag it. The wheels are noisy. She'll wake up." Jess's sharp whisper hissed. Yes, I'm lifting it. It's heavy, you know." "Help me out. Don't just play on your phone," Brenda replied in a hushed tone. Eleanor listened to it all from under her blanket with a bitter smile. They moved like thieves in their own home, ridiculous and pathetic at the same time. Not long after, a black pre-booked SUV stopped in front of the gate. The car's headlights briefly pierced through the gap in the bedroom window. Footsteps approached the master bedroom door. It must be Mark. Eleanor held her breath, regulating her body's rhythm to rise and fall regularly, like someone in a deep sleep. Mark opened the door, slightly peeking inside. He made sure Eleanor was still asleep. Confident his wife hadn't moved, Mark closed the door again very, very slowly. Then came a sound that made Eleanor's blood boil. Click. The sound of a key turning from the outside. You heard that right, click. One small sound with a very big meaning. Honestly, as I'm writing this part, my hands are itching to throw something. Mark locked the bedroom door from the outside. What was the logic? What if there was a fire? What if Eleanor suddenly got sick? They treated Eleanor not like a wife or a human being, but like a pet they were afraid would run away while the owner was gone. Damn, this level of toxicity is beyond cure. Outside, Mark whispered to his mother. "It's locked, Mom. We're safe. I have the key. Once we're boarding, I'll text her and say the key fell into my pocket by mistake. Let her call a locksmith herself. The important thing is we get going." "Good," Brenda replied, satisfied. "Just let her be confused in there. Come on, we'll be late for check-in." The sound of suitcase wheels on the driveway grew distant. The car doors opened, then closed again. The car engine purred softly, then slowly disappeared into the silence of the cold early morning. The house was quiet again. 5 minutes after the car was truly gone, Eleanor opened her eyes. No more pretending. She sat on the edge of the bed, tidied her messy hair, then walked calmly to the bedroom door. She grabbed the handle. Locked. Truly locked tight. But Mark had forgotten one important thing. Eleanor was the mistress of this house long before Mark married her. This house was an inheritance from Eleanor's parents. She knew every corner, every nook, and of course, every spare key. Eleanor walked to her wardrobe, feeling the dusty top of it. Her fingers touched a small brass key she always kept there for emergencies. Click! The door opened easily. Eleanor stepped out of the room, breathing in the air of the house that now felt so much fresher without the presence of those 3 parasites. She walked to the kitchen, turned on the coffee maker, and started a brew. While waiting, she picked up her phone. Her fingers danced across the screen, opening the large family group chat, which included uncles, aunts, cousins, and of course her narcissistic mother-in-law. There, an online status was visible under Brenda's name. They must be on their way to the airport, their hearts full of joy. Eleanor poured her coffee, inhaling the calming aroma of caffeine, then sat cross-legged on the living room sofa. The same sofa where she had hidden in fear last night. Now she was the queen in her own castle. "Safe travels," Eleanor muttered, sipping her coffee slowly. "Enjoy your 2-hour journey to hell." Suddenly, Eleanor's phone screen lit up. A photo notification came in on the family group, and what she saw on the screen made her smile widen. But her eyes flashed with a dangerous glint. Eleanor's phone screen flickered incessantly, spewing a series of notifications that shattered the morning silence. The family group chat, Happy Family, which was usually quiet, suddenly became as noisy as a Black Friday sale. The first photo appeared uploaded by Brenda. It was taken inside the SUV with a glaring flash. Brenda sat in the middle, large sunglasses pushed up on her head. Her lips were painted with bright red lipstick, smiling wide to show off her newly whitened teeth. To her left, Jess posed with a peace sign, trying to look cute. Meanwhile, Mark in the front seat turned back and gave a thumbs up. Below the photo, Brenda wrote a caption longer than a CVS receipt. "Praise the Lord, finally on our way to Italy. Rome, here we come. Thank you, God, for the blessing of this vacation. It feels so relieving to be able to leave with a clean atmosphere without any negative aura clinging to us. Pray for our safe journey. Number family trip, number blessed number, no freeloaders." Before any other family members could respond, Jess immediately chimed in with a voice message. Eleanor pressed play. Jess's shrill voice filled the quiet living room. "Totally, Mom. We can finally breathe easy, haha. Bye-bye, Cinderella. Hope she enjoys guarding an empty house like a security guard." Eleanor's hand holding the coffee cup tightened. Her knuckles turned white. Cinderella and security guard. 2 new nicknames for a wife who for the last 3 years had willingly woken up at 5 a.m. to pack Mark's office lunch so he could save up for this very vacation. Eleanor's chest burned. Not with sadness, but with heat. A heat that incinerated any lingering doubt. If there had been a shred of pity left, remembering that Mark was once a good husband at the beginning of their marriage, that feeling had now completely evaporated. Jess's voice message was the final nail in their marriage's coffin. Especially when Aunt Karen, Brenda's famously nosy sister, replied, "Hey, Brenda, why didn't you bring Eleanor along? Poor thing being left all alone." Brenda's answer was truly beyond belief. She typed quickly, "Oh, Karen, she's not on the level for a vacation like this. Besides, she's lazy. I told her to get her passport sorted and she couldn't even manage that. Better for her to stay home and clean. That's her talent, after all. Seriously insane. Just reading that made my blood pressure spike. Imagine after leaving your wife behind, locking her in you, now play the victim, and badmouth her in front of the entire extended family." Brenda's mouth needed to be sent to a school for ethics. She forgot that Eleanor's talent for cleaning was what kept her house sparkling every day. Eleanor placed her half-empty coffee cup down with a loud thud on the glass table. She didn't cry. Her face grew colder, as cold as marble. Eleanor's slender fingers began to dance across her phone's virtual keyboard. She wouldn't curse them out. Cursing was tacky Jess's level. Eleanor chose words that were polite, ambiguous, but stabbed right at the heart of their peace. She typed, "Wow, looks so fun, Mom, Mark, Jess. Be careful on the road. Don't leave anything behind, because once you get to the airport, it's a long way to turn back. You never know if you've forgotten something important, like your brains. Or maybe your passports." Sent. 2 blue check marks appeared instantly. They were all holding their phones in the SUV, speeding down the highway. Their laughter must have paused for a moment after reading that message. Eleanor could imagine Mark's confused face. Why is she asking about passports, he might think. But then Mark would dismiss it, feeling secure because the passports were in his bag, stored neatly in the plastic folder he saw last night. A false, dangerous confidence. Eleanor didn't wait for a reply. She exited the chat, turned off her notifications, and opened her photo gallery. She looked at the picture of their 3 real passports she had taken last night before hiding them under the kitchen floor. She smiled cynically. "You think you're the winners today. Just wait another hour." Eleanor rose from the sofa. She walked to the backyard. The sky was beginning to brighten. The morning sun was peeking out shyly. But for Mark's family, this was the last dawn before the storm hit. Eleanor took an old metal trash bin used for burning yard waste. She placed it right in the middle of the yard. From the shed, she took out a small jerry can containing leftover gasoline for the lawnmower. She also grabbed a box of wooden matches. The preparations were complete. The stage was set. Now she just had to wait for the main actors to realize that their drama's script had been forcibly rewritten by the shadow director. Suddenly, Eleanor's phone rang loudly. The name "My Husband" appeared on the screen. Eleanor let it ring until it went silent. Once, twice, 3 times. They must have arrived at the airport. The show was beginning. Eleanor sat on the worn-out rattan chair on the back porch, staring at the metal bin that stood proudly in the middle of the grass, still wet with dew. In her hand, the 4 blue passports felt heavy, not because of their physical weight, but because of the weight of history and betrayal stored within them. Mark's passport, Brenda's passport, Jess's passport, and her own passport, which had never been used because Mark always kept it, claiming it was for safekeeping. Eleanor opened Mark's passport. Her husband's stiff smile stared back from the identity page. That smile was once the reason Eleanor held on. She remembered when Mark defended her in front of Brenda 5 years ago when they were newly married. "Eleanor is my wife, Mom. Respect her," Mark had said back then. But those words now felt like a stale bedtime story. The reality was, the Mark of today was just a puppet whose strings were held tightly by his mother. A sliver of doubt as thin as cigarette smoke crept in. Is this too cruel? Eleanor thought. Burning a passport is a criminal act, the destruction of a federal document. Maybe she could just hide them, let them panic, and then return them a day or 2 later after they returned in shame. But then the memory of last night's conversation replayed in her mind. Lock her bedroom door from the outside if you have to. So there's no drama. Bye-bye, Cinderella. Freeloader. Those words weren't just insults. They were dehumanization. They didn't consider Eleanor a human being with feelings. If Eleanor only hid the passports, they would come home, yell at her, force her to apologize, and the cycle of oppression would repeat. Eleanor would go back to being Cinderella. This cycle had to be broken. And you don't break iron chains with a nail clipper, but with a blowtorch. Eleanor stood up, her face hardening. She arranged small pieces of kindling at the bottom of the metal bin neatly, as if preparing a bonfire for a barbecue party. On top of the pile of wood, she placed a few sheets of old newspaper. Her right hand grabbed the jerry can of gasoline. The clear bluish liquid poured out, drenching the wood and newspaper, spreading a sharp, pungent aroma. An aroma that promised destruction. Now for the most crucial part. Eleanor didn't throw the passports in right away. She reached into her pants pocket, took out her phone, and opened the camera app. She switched the mode to video. She needed proof. She needed a silent witness to her courage today. She positioned her phone on the garden table, leaning it against a terracotta pot so the camera lens was aimed perfectly at the metal bin and herself. Rec. The small red light on the screen blinked. Eleanor stepped into the frame. She held the 4 passports like a hand of cards, fanning them towards the camera with a sweet, terrifying smile. "Hello. Happy family," she said softly, looking at the camera lens as if she were looking into her mother-in-law's eyes. "You said you wanted to go to Italy, said you wanted to be free from the freeloader. I just want to help lighten your load. It's a hassle to carry heavy documents, right? Seriously, this is the craziest part. If I were in Eleanor's position, I'd probably be shaking like a leaf. But she was so calm, like a graceful psychopath making a cooking tutorial. The only difference was, what was being cooked wasn't brisket, but her husband's future. Insane. The vibe was truly like a villain's elegant origin story. Eleanor took a match. She struck it. A small flame danced on the tip of the wooden stick. "Enjoy your imaginary vacation," she whispered. She tossed the matchstick into the bin. Whoosh! The fire ignited the gasoline with a ferocious roar. Flames leaped high, creating a satisfying whooshing sound. The heat immediately slapped Eleanor's face, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she moved closer, and one by one she threw the passports into the inferno. First, Jess's passport. It curled, blackened, then turned to ash. Second, Brenda's passport. The blue cover blistered before being completely consumed. Third, Mark's passport. Her husband's face on the biodata page burned slowly, vanishing, swallowed by the fire. Eleanor stared at the fire with an empty gaze. It felt as if a ton of weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Just as she was about to throw in the last passport, her phone screen, which was still recording, changed. The video recording stopped automatically because of an incoming call. A video call. Mark Peterson. Eleanor's face on the camera screen was replaced by a close-up of Mark's panicked face with the noisy airport crowd in the background. His eyes were bulging, his hair a mess. Eleanor didn't answer right away. She let the ringing compete with the crackling sound of the fire. She looked at the screen, then at the remaining passport in her hand, still untouched by the flames. "Hello, honey." Eleanor slid the green button, answering the call with a sweet smile, her back to the fire raging fiercely behind her. Let's rewind time for a moment. About 30 minutes before the fire ignited in Eleanor's backyard, let's move to the magnificent and chilly Terminal 4 of JFK Airport. This family of sudden jet-setters was at the peak of their self-confidence. Brenda walked in front like a queen at the wrong venue, dragging a knockoff Louis Vuitton suitcase with her chin held high. Behind her, Jess was busy making Instagram stories, spinning 360 degrees to show off her OOTD, which she called airport fashion style. Mark, the main sponsor, walked behind them, pushing a trolley loaded with large suitcases, smiling proudly to see his mother and sister so happy. They felt like they owned the world, while Eleanor was just dust on the carpet of the house they had left behind. The queue at the international airline check-in counter was quite long, but for them, even waiting felt wonderful. Jess whispered loudly to her mother. "Later on the plane, I'm going to ask the flight attendant to take a picture of us, Mom." To make Eleanor even more jealous. Brenda chuckled, adjusting her sunglasses. "Don't worry, dear. I'll write an even spicier caption." Their turn arrived. The airline staff. A young woman in a neat uniform with a professional smile greeted them warmly. "Good morning. Destination Rome. May I have your passports and tickets, please?" With a slightly contrived air of arrogance, Jess reached into her mother's handbag, where the plastic folder was last stored. "Here you go, miss. Please make sure all our seats are by the window. We don't want to be separated." "Oh, and can we upgrade to business class on the spot?" Jess chirped, placing the 3 blue, gold-embossed books on the counter with a solid thud. The staff member nodded politely and picked up the top book. She opened it to scan the identity data. Silence. 1 second. 2 seconds. The staff member wasn't typing anything into the computer. Her brow furrowed deeply. She flipped to the next page. Blank. The page after that had thin lines like a middle school notebook. She closed the book, examined the cover, then looked at Jess with a confused and suspicious expression. "I'm sorry, miss." The staff member's voice was hesitant. "Is this some kind of joke for a YouTube video?" Jess glared, feeling offended. "What do you mean a joke? Those are real passports. We're going on vacation, not pulling a prank." But miss, the staff member held up the book, opening it wide in front of Jess, Brenda, and Mark's faces. "This is a diary, not a passport. And there it is, the moment I've been waiting for." The realization hits. I swear, if I were there, I'd have spread out a mat and started eating popcorn. Imagine Jess's arrogant face, which just moments ago looked like she owned the airport, instantly turning as pale as a corpse, her A-list bravado crumbling in public. Jess snatched the book back rudely. "Miss, don't you dare mess with me." Her sentence trailed off. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the lined paper in her hand. No photo, no immigration stamps, no federal emblem, just a cheap notebook with a blue cover. "Mom, why is this a notebook?" Jess shrieked hysterically. Brenda panicked and immediately grabbed the other 2 books from the counter. She opened them with violently shaking hands. Blank. They were all blank. "Mark, check your bag. Maybe you brought the wrong folder," Brenda snapped, her voice rising, causing other passengers in the queue to turn and whisper. Mark, his face already ashen, hastily emptied his backpack onto the airport floor. He pulled everything out. A change of clothes, a charger, his wallet, but no other passports. The plastic folder was the only document holder they had brought. "There's nothing else, Mom, just this." Mark's voice was hoarse. Cold sweat beaded on his temples like corn kernels. He flipped through the fake blue books as if hoping their contents would magically turn into real passports if he shook them. "Impossible!" shouted Brenda, no longer caring about the elegant image she had constructed. "Last night I saw the passports in here myself. I saw the eagle emblem with my own eyes." "Ma'am, please calm down," said a security officer who was approaching due to the commotion. "If you do not have valid travel documents, please step out of the line so you don't obstruct other passengers." The shame came like a tsunami. People around them started to snicker and shake their heads. Whispers were clearly audible. "All style, no substance. Their passports are from a dollar store. So embarrassing. They must have been scammed by a fake travel agency." Mark felt his knees go weak. Thousands of dollars in ticket money would be gone if they didn't check in within the next 45 minutes. And without passports, they couldn't go anywhere. Even walking out of the airport felt impossible with the weight of the shame. Jess's cunning mind worked fast. She looked at Mark, then back at the fake book. Her eyes narrowed with hatred. "Eleanor," she hissed. "This must be Eleanor's doing. She was the last one to go to sleep last night. She must have swapped our passports while we were sleeping." Brenda immediately grabbed Mark's arm, gripping it so tightly her fake nails dug into his skin. Her face was red, holding back an explosive rage. "Call that snake of a woman now," Brenda shrieked, her voice echoing through the departure terminal. "She must have hidden them. Tell her to bring them here right now, or I'll report her to the police." Mark pressed the call button for the 10th time. His fingers wet with cold sweat slipped on the slick phone screen. "Pick up, Ellie, please pick up," he muttered like a desperate mantra. Around him, the scene grew more chaotic. Brenda was now sitting limply on a cold metal waiting bench, clutching her chest as if a heart attack was imminent. Jess paced back and forth like a caged animal, biting the nails she had just gotten manicured yesterday. Every second that passed on the airport's digital clock felt like a sledgehammer blow to their remaining hope. Beep beep. "The number you are calling is not answering." Mark groaned in frustration, nearly smashing his expensive contract-locked phone onto the marble floor. Meanwhile, back at home, Eleanor was enjoying an orchestra of notifications. Her phone, which she had placed on the garden table, was vibrating violently, shifting slightly with each buzz. The screen lit up continuously, displaying the names "my husband," "mother-in-law," and "Jess" in rotation. But Eleanor wasn't sleeping. She was actually live on her second Instagram account, a secret account dedicated to her hobbies of baking and home decorating, which ironically her husband's family knew nothing about because they never cared. On the live stream, Eleanor greeted her handful of followers with a bright smile. "Morning, everyone. Sorry if my phone notifications are a bit distracting. You know how it is, some fans are missing me badly this morning," she joked casually while stirring a glass of warm, sweet tea. In the comments section, her viewers laughed at her joke, unaware that the fans she was referring to were 3 human beings on the verge of a breakdown at JFK Airport. Honestly, this is what you call torture by silence. Have you ever called someone in a desperate situation but they just won't pick up? That feeling is more painful than being yelled at. If they yell, at least you know they're angry. But with silence, your mind travels everywhere imagining the worst-case scenarios. And Eleanor, wow, she played this card perfectly. She let the wild imaginations of Mark and his family torture themselves. Back at the airport, the check-in staff had already made the final call for them over the loudspeaker. Final call for passengers Mark Peterson, Brenda Peterson, and Jessica Peterson, destination Rome. The gate will be closing in 20 minutes. Mark. "Do something!" shrieked Brenda, her fake tears starting to run, smudging her mascara. "Call a neighbor. Have the police break down the door. Just get those passports here now. There's not enough time, Mom. It's a 2-hour drive from home. The plane leaves in 20 minutes, Mark snapped, losing his patience. The veins in his neck bulged. Jess suddenly snatched Mark's phone. "Video call her. Use video call so she knows we're serious and not messing around. If she sees Mom's crying face, she'll give in. She's a softie." A stupid idea, but it was the only option left. Mark snatched his phone back and pressed the camera icon. In her backyard, Eleanor saw the icon on her screen change from a voice call to a video call. The smile on her lips turned into a thin smirk. "Showtime," she whispered. Eleanor ended her Instagram live. She took a moment to compose her breathing, then pressed the green button on the screen. However, she didn't immediately point the camera at her face. She covered the front camera lens with her thumb, making the screen on Mark's phone go black. "Hello," Eleanor's voice was hoarse, deep, and slow. An Oscar-worthy performance of someone who had just woken up. "Mark, why do you keep calling? I just went back to sleep after sunrise." At the airport, Mark immediately shouted into the phone's speaker. "Eleanor, don't pretend to be asleep. Where are our passports? You swapped them last night." "Huh. Passports," Eleanor replied in a deliberately confused tone, her screen still dark. "You mean our bank books or our marriage certificate? I don't understand." "Don't be stupid," Jess yelled, leaning her face close to Mark's phone. "The blue books are our passports. You replaced them with notebooks, right? Admit it," Eleanor let out a small laugh. A very quiet laugh, but enough to make the hair on Mark's neck stand on end. Eleanor's thumb slowly moved away from the camera lens. The morning sunlight began to fill Mark's screen, revealing Eleanor's face, looking fresh and vibrant, not at all like someone who had just woken up. And what was more terrifying, behind Eleanor, orange flames were blazing high from a metal bin. Oh, you mean these blue books, honey? Eleanor asked in a sweet, deadly tone. Mark stared at his phone screen, his eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. On the screen, Eleanor's background was no longer a lush garden, but a small hell. Flames licked greedily from within the metal bin, and in Eleanor's hand, one blue book remained, its edges already starting to blacken from the heat. Eleanor, don't. That's thousands of dollars, Mark screamed, no longer caring if his voice shattered the eardrums of people at the airport. Jess and Brenda immediately crowded around, scrambling to see the screen. Their faces, which had been red with anger, now turned as white as paper when they saw what was in Eleanor's hand. Eleanor just smiled faintly, very faintly. Money. Oh, you mean these papers? Eleanor turned her phone's rear camera towards the bin. There, amidst the glowing embers, the metal spiral frames of the burnt passports were clearly visible. The blue cover with United States of America written on it was now a sad, crispy piece of charcoal. Brenda's face on the half-remaining identity page looked like it was melting, as if crying tears of blood. Yup, burnt to a crisp, Eleanor said lightly, as if commenting on overcooked fried chicken. Put out the fire, pour water on it now, you crazy woman, Brenda shrieked hysterically, her hands trying to grasp at the phone screen as if she could extinguish the fire from a distance. Eleanor turned the camera back to her face. Her gaze was cold, piercing straight into Mark's shattered soul. You said you wanted to go far away, right? To be free from the freeloader. Well, I've sent your passports ahead to hell. You can follow them there. Bye-bye. The video call was disconnected by Eleanor. I swear, guys, just narrating this makes my hands cold. That was so savage. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Can you imagine how strong Eleanor's mentality is? She burned federal documents with a sweet smile in front of the passport owners. This isn't just regular revenge. This is the art of mentally destroying your opponent down to their very core. I'm sure in that second, Mark's heart stopped for a moment. Mark's phone screen returned to the home menu. But a second later, a notification sounded again. This time, it wasn't a call, but a video sent to the family group chat. Eleanor had sent the high-definition recording she took a few minutes ago before Mark called. With violently shaking hands, Mark opened the video. Jess and Brenda watched over his shoulder. The video was crystal clear. It showed Eleanor's hand pouring gasoline. It clearly, very clearly, showed the names on the passports before they were thrown into the fire. Jessica Peterson Plunk, Brenda Peterson Plunk, Mark Peterson Plunk. The crackling sound of the fire in the video was so crisp, a stark contrast to the suffocating silence that had suddenly fallen upon the three of them amidst the airport's hustle and bustle. The video ended with Eleanor waving at the camera. Happy stay-at-home vacation. The world collapsed. Truly collapsed. Brenda took 2 steps back, her hands clutching her tight chest. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. Her eyes rolled upwards. Passport. My Italy. She rambled incoherently. Her legs became as weak as jelly. And in a matter of seconds, thud. Brenda collapsed onto the hard marble floor of the airport, completely fainted. Mom Jess shrieked hysterically immediately, kneeling to shake her mother's body. But Mark didn't move. He stood frozen like a melting wax statue. The phone in his hand slipped from his grasp, falling freely to the floor. Crash. The phone screen shattered into 1,000 pieces, just like the remnants of their pride and their hopes of a luxury vacation. People started to gather around them. Airport police ran over. But to Mark, the sound of commotion and people's shouts seemed distant. In his head, only one sound echoed: Eleanor's small laugh and the crackling sound of passports being eaten by fire. However, Mark didn't know one thing. The destruction at the airport was just the beginning. The real surprise was still waiting for them at their front gate. The 2-hour journey from the airport back home felt like a trip to a funeral. Inside the rideshare they ordered, there was no more laughter, no more Instagram stories, and certainly no more arrogance. There was only a suffocating silence punctuated by the muffled sobs of Brenda, who had regained consciousness but was still weak, leaning on Jess's shoulder. Mark sat in the front seat, staring blankly at the sprawling highway. His head throbbed intensely. Thousands of dollars for the tickets were gone, as the promo tickets they bought were non-refundable. The hotel in Positano, already paid in full, gone. The car rental fee, they're gone. The total loss for today was equivalent to the price of a decent used car, and it all vanished because of 3 small blue books. Suddenly, Jess broke the silence with an uncontrollable burst of emotion. "This is all your fault, Mom," Jess screamed from the back seat, making the driver glance up in surprise from the rearview mirror. "If you hadn't come up with the idea to leave Ellie behind, if we had just asked for permission nicely, this wouldn't have happened. Now I'm so embarrassed, Mom. All my friends at college already know I was going to Italy, Brenda, who was usually dominant, replied, this time with a weak but sharp voice. Why are you blaming me? You were the one egging us on. You were the one who said, don't invite Ellie, she'll be tacky. Have you forgotten enough? Mark roared, slamming his fist on the dashboard. The driver braked, suddenly startled. Can you two just shut up? My head is about to explode. Jess, you were careless too. You said you checked everything. How could you not tell the difference between a passport and a damn notebook? You're the stupid one, big brother, Jess retorted, not wanting to lose. Her tears flowed again. You're the head of the household, but you can't even manage your wife. You can't even handle one wife, and now she's dared to burn her mother-in-law's passport. Pathetic. Oh my. See, folks, this is what I mean by a fragile foundation. A family built on arrogance and looking down on others will shatter with just a small flick. They claw at each other, blame each other. Yet the root of the problem is in their own reflections. There's no solidarity anymore. Where's that family trip slogan now? It's stale. The car finally turned into their residential neighborhood. The faces of neighbors watering plants or sweeping their porches turned with curiosity. Of course they were surprised. Didn't the Peterson family make a big fuss about going abroad early this morning? Why were they back by 10 a.m. with such disheveled faces? The car stopped right in front of the house gate. Mark paid the driver with the remaining cash in his wallet, money that was supposed to be for souvenirs. He got out, followed by Brenda, who walked with a limp, supported by Jess. They dragged the large suitcases with weary steps. Mark reached into his pocket and took out the house key. He inserted the key into the small gate lock. Click. The key went in but wouldn't turn. Mark frowned. He tried again, wiggling it left and right. Still nothing. The key didn't fit. What's wrong now, Mark? Jess snapped impatiently, feeling the heat of the rising sun. It won't open. It's stuck. Mark started to panic. He moved to the main driveway gate. He tried the large padlock. Same result. The key wouldn't go in at all. Mark took a step back and looked at the padlock. It was a new, shiny padlock, not the rusty one they usually used. And that's when Mark realized something even more terrifying. Lined up neatly on the house porch were suitcases of clothes, boxes of shoes, and a pile of large black trash bags. It wasn't trash. It was their belongings. The main door of the house opened slowly. Eleanor stepped out. She had showered and was wearing a very elegant modern sundress. Her hair was in a neat bun. In her hands, she held a cup of tea and a long white envelope. She stood behind the securely locked iron gate, looking at the three miserable human beings in front of her with a terrifyingly friendly smile. "Oh, you're back," Eleanor said casually. "Did the plane break down?" Mark gripped the iron bars of the gate, shaking them violently. "Open the door, Eleanor. Stop playing games. This is my house, too." Eleanor sipped her tea slowly, then shook her head. "A small correction, honey. The deed to this house is in my father's name, the late Mr. Davis. Did you forget you're just a passenger here? And it's time for an ill-mannered passenger." Eleanor dropped the white envelope through a gap in the gate right at the tip of Mark's shoe to be dropped off mid-journey. Mark looked at the envelope. He didn't need to open it to know what was inside. It wasn't a love letter. Mark picked up the white envelope with a violently shaking hand as if it were made of hot lead. He tore the seal roughly. Inside, a piece of paper with a law firm's letterhead and a bold title made his world stop spinning: "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." Behind him, Jess was still busy cursing while kicking a suitcase wheel, while Brenda stared at the gate of the luxurious house with a blank expression, the house she had boasted about to her country club friends as my son's house, when in reality, she was just living off the kindness of the daughter-in-law she had trampled on. "Eleanor, are you serious?" Mark's voice was choked. A tear fell onto the divorce paper. "Just because of a vacation, you want a divorce. We can talk about this." "Ellie, I'm sorry. I made a mistake." Eleanor laughed. A crisp, free, and incredibly painful laugh to hear. A mistake is a one-time thing, Mark. If it's repeated and planned, that's called character. And just so you know, this isn't just about a vacation. This is about the dignity you've chipped away at piece by piece for 3 years. Brenda, upon hearing the word divorce, was suddenly energized. She moved forward, gripping the iron gate. "Hey, you crazy woman, you think you can just kick us out? You're a criminal. You burned our passports. I'm going to report you to the police. I'll let you rot in jail," she threatened. Her eyes, bulging the veins in her neck, taut. Eleanor didn't flinch. She stepped closer to the gate, looking into her mother-in-law's eyes with a look of condescending pity. "Go ahead and report me, Brenda." "Please," Eleanor challenged calmly. She reached into her dress pocket and pulled out 3 blue passports, pristine, clean, and whole. Mark's, Jess's, and Brenda's eyes bulged, nearly popping out of their sockets. Their breath caught in their throats. Those were their passports. The real passports that were supposed to be ashes in the metal bin. What the? Jess gaped, her mouth hanging wide open. Did you really think I was stupid enough to go to jail for you? Eleanor smiled, crookedly playing with the passports in her fingers. What I burned in the video was just Mark's old passport that expired 5 years ago, plus 2 notebooks with covers I printed on sticker paper. You were just in such a panic you didn't look at the video carefully. And there it is. The plot twist that made me give a standing ovation. A standing ovation for Eleanor. I swear this is pure genius. She pranked an entire toxic family until their minds were shattered, made them lose thousands of dollars, made them humiliated at the airport. But Eleanor's own hands remained clean in the eyes of the law. The very definition of playing it beautifully. Eleanor isn't just a queen, she's a mastermind. Give them here. Brenda tried to reach through the gate with her wrinkled hand, trying to snatch the passports. Give them back, they're ours. Eleanor pulled her hand back. Not so easy. These passports will be evidence in court. If you need them, you can ask the judge during the first divorce hearing. That is, if you have any money left to hire a lawyer after your vacation funds went up in smoke. Eleanor put the passports back in her pocket. She looked at Mark one last time. A gaze that was once full of love was now completely empty. All your things are outside. Don't even think about climbing the fence. There are CCTV cameras and the neighbor's fierce German shepherd. Enjoy your new life, free from the freeloader. I hope you're happy. Without waiting for a reply, Eleanor turned around. Her steps were light in time, with her now free and liberated heartbeat. She walked back into the house, closed the thick oak door, and locked it securely. Outside, Mark collapsed onto the hot asphalt, wailing his wife's name. Jess cried. Blaming her mother, and Brenda screamed hysterically until the neighborhood security patrol came with a stern face due to a noise complaint from the neighbors. The screen fades to black as the sound of the security car's siren approaches to evict the new elite homeless of the block. Man, that feels so satisfying, right? From Eleanor's story, we learn a very expensive lesson. Never underestimate a person who is quiet and patient. Often, the most dangerous person isn't the one who shouts or flaunts their power, but the one who calmly observes, strategizes, and strikes back at the most opportune time in the most elegant way. And for all the husbands and mothers-in-law out there, please remember this. A wife is a partner, not property. If you treat her like a queen, your fortunes will be royal. But if you treat her like a servant or an enemy, be prepared for your palace to crumble to dust overnight. Karma has your full address, and it never delivers to the wrong package. What do you think of Eleanor's revenge? Do you agree with it, or was it too cruel? Write your honest opinions in the comments section. I'm really curious to read them. Don't forget to like if you were satisfied with the ending. Share it with your family group chat. Who knows, someone might get the hint, oops. And of course, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on life's drama stories that get hotter every day. See you in the next story. Bye-bye.